ANA eLearning Academy is brought to you by CDN Graysheet, a trusted source of rare coin and currency valuations since 1963.
Well, hello everyone. Thank you for joining us today for the ANA eLearning Academy. The ANA would like to thank our eLearning partner, Graysheet, for their support of the eLearning program. Today we've got Sam Deep, who will be presenting Off the Beaten Numismatic Path. You will be muted for this presentation, and if you have any questions, you may put them in the chat or Q&A box, and I'll go ahead and read them to the presenter at the end of the presentation. So now I'll go ahead and turn everything over to Sam for his presentation. Go ahead, Sam.
Thank you very much. Well, welcome to Off the Beaten Numismatic Path. So the question is, what's this all about? Well, how do you go off the path? Well, first of all, collect stuff that hardly anyone collects. No one's made an album for. It's often mysterious, eye-popping, mostly not coins. It teaches you something about history and is a blast to show off. And I've had a great deal of fun putting this thing into an exhibit. Well, let's get started. And with a brief introduction to me, I started feeling like almost everyone's story who's been around a long time, I started filling Lincoln boards and Barber boards back in the 1950s. And actually one day in a roll of wheat cents, found a 1955 double die. It was amazing. My past collections that I don't, most have been sold off are US type, college exonomia, that actually won a Howland Wood award in New York. Ancient coins, Civil War, Grant versus Lee, Grant medals and Lee medals, Pennsylvania engraved spoons and magnifying glasses, just some of the things that I've really enjoyed. And I don't exhibit anymore, but I was a former exhibitor and a judge. And actually for 2 years, while Joe Bowling was on the board, on the ANA board, I stepped in to serve as chief judge for two years. And that was a heck of an experience. So let's get started. Let's take a look at the first piece that I want to share with you. Isn't this a beauty? Isn't this a beauty? It's the Saco, Maine was one of our oldest cities, and it dates to 1630. And this is a 14-karat gold marshal's badge, worn by the chief law enforcement officer in the late 1800s or early 1900s. Hard to tell exactly when it was worn, but very likely it's unique. And many of the pieces that I'm going to show you in this presentation today are unique. And boy, is that eye candy or what? It's just, it's a beauty, absolute beauty. This isn't so beautiful. This isn't so beautiful, but boy, is it historical. And do you recognize what it is? Does anybody recognize what it is? That's a rhetorical question because you can't answer right now. But if you said it's a siege coin, you're absolutely right. Because siege money, well, it was made back in the old world during enemy attacks on a city when regular currency ran out, because they needed to hire mercenaries to help them stave off the attack. And so they made money for this specific purpose. And this is a Polish piece. And it dates from 1621. And it was used at the fortress of Khotin when 45,000 Polish and Cossack troops hunkered down because they were being attacked by 160,000 Turks led by Sultan Osman. And although the Sultan lost 40,000 men, he won. He won. But some of you know Larry Korchnak, perhaps, and Larry Korchnak is the expert on siege coins. If you want to know more about them, actually, I think Larry's done an academy on this, or is going to do one, and quite an expert on this field. So what in the heck is this? Can you figure it out? Well, chances are, unless you've actually seen this one, you're not aware that this is a magician's token. And Anna Eva Faye, that's what the AEF on the obverse is all about. Anna Eva Fay was a psychic and a magician in the late 1800s. And she was, supposed to be a medium to dead spirits, but later on, she admitted later to be a fraud, like many of those folks are. But this magician token wasn't actually used in her act, but it was sold after her performances in the year 1905 as a good luck piece. And look at the bottom there. Look at the reverse. That gibberish is supposed to be bring good fortune to you. And of course, no one can interpret it and know what it's supposed to say. And it actually says nothing at all. But magician tokens, they're very cool. Very cool. All right. What do you think this is? What do you think it is? If I told you that each of these pieces were 12 inches in diameter, would that help you identify what it is? Would you realize that they're plasters? Plasters. And these particular plasters were designed by Joseph Renier, and they birthed a very famous medal, the 1961 Medal of Civil War Rivals, during the bicentennial of the Civil War, or the centennial of the Civil War. And Janvier. Now, how did a plaster start a medal? Well, the next step was to take a Janvier reducing machine and trace it over the metal to carve the hub that then produced the dies that struck the metal in both silver and bronze. And all this work was done in the Medallion Arts Company. So have you ever seen a Janvier reducing machine? By the way, this also would be rare. Usually no more than a half dozen of these are produced, and sometimes only one or two. This could actually be the one that was used to produce the hub. Who knows? But a Janvier reducing machine, the one that was probably used back then, looks something like this. This is from about 1850. It's an early model, and there on the right you see the plaster, and moving over to the left you see that very small face, and that's the hub. That's the hub that got produced by this running over the plaster. What do they look like today? Do they still use them? Yes, of course. But this is a modern version of a Janvier. This is not done by hand. This is totally mechanized. And as you can see on the right, there's the not a plaster, but this is a metallic version of a plaster, and it's carving on the left side there, the hub that then produces the dies that then creates the metals. And they were made in both silver and gold. And for my off the beat numismatic path exhibit, I had both the silver and the gold. Cool, huh? What in the world is this? Well, we just talked about hubs, didn't we? And on the left there is a hub. And what's it all about? Well, A. Westhoff was a New York coin dealer in the 1880s, and he was fascinated by the Summer Island coins of 1616, and so he forged a fantasy master hub and dies of the famous coin, and gold copies were struck and sold by the dies that were made from the master hub. Now, the hub impression on the right was struck in white metal, and it was struck by this hub. But here's what's cool. I found that hub in an ANA World's Fair of Money. Well, we weren't even calling them a World's Fair of Money back then, but I found that hub, I would say about a dozen years ago. And I loved having the hub, but I didn't have the hub impression. I didn't even know about the hub impressions until I went to a PAN show, Pennsylvania Association of Numismatists. I went to a PAN show, and I looked in I looked in the cases of this one dealer that I often go to, and I saw that hub impression. I said, wait a minute, that connects with my hub. And so my hands were shaking as I took the money out of my pocket to give to the dealer to buy that hub impression. But that's one of the excitements of collecting this way. You see things related to other things that you have bought, and when you find them, that makes your exhibit all the much more exciting. And I just loved finding this was incredible. And of course, as we say there, the thing that makes this not a counterfeit is that Summer Island coins were never created as 20 shillings. They were never XX. They were always of a lower denomination. All right, moving on. Okay, now what do you think is on the reverse of this piece here? What do you think is on that reverse? If you said a mirror, you're right. Because in the early 1900s, some merchants used encased coin advertising mirrors. Maybe you have one. This 1903 Indian head cent, look how well it's been preserved by the mica that's over the top of it. But then, I mean, this is supposed to go in a woman's purse. And how many women do you think were willing to carry mirrors in their purses promoting brick making and clay working? But unfortunately, I'll be honest with you, the mirror on the other side is cracked. That's one of the reasons I didn't show it. But these things are very, very rare, very, very hard to find these days. Wow. Wow. Silver dollar cutout coins. Very rare. Very rare. In fact, I've never seen another one. And I've had this one for 12 years, and it still amazes me. I mean, unfortunately, I've sold off a lot of the items, but this is one that I still have. And isn't it amazing how the head of Liberty is only connected by a very small piece at the bottom and a very small piece at the top? And if you want to get a better view of that, take a look at that baby. Wow. Wow. And, and so you might be asking me, well, how much do you have to pay for these kinds of things? Well, I don't know. I guess a Carnegie medal probably cost me more money than anything else that I bought. This one was $120. And I doubt that it's unique, but very, very rare. And isn't it a beauty? Isn't it an absolute beauty? So, I mean, why would we go off the path? What are some of the reasons? Well, first of all, when I was collecting my type set, I was always tempted to fill holes. And that temptation sometimes caused me to buy something of a lower quality than I should have purchased. That's not an issue here. That's not an issue here, because you see something, you say, wow, that's for my collection. And you can shop almost anywhere to build your collection. I mean, I have bought some of these things in flea markets, in antique stores, at coin club meetings, and certainly at ANA meetings. You find them. Oh, and I found one thing actually in a store, just a regular store, which is really kind of weird. But that's what makes it so exciting. You can find this anywhere. And when I used to travel, and I traveled a lot on the road, man, I'd stop at every antique store I could find, and found a lot of good things. And then the other thing is, you'll own stuff that no one else has. Because as I said, and you've already seen a number of these pieces, and some of the more that you're going to see are unique or very hard to find. and you learn a little bit about a lot. Like, for example, what I learned about siege coins by having my one siege coin. And you learn a lot of history. And it's just a very historically connected way to collect. All right, let's get back to the pieces. Boy, am I ever sorry I sold this piece off. It's a gold award. And gold awards are relatively common, but this one is not, because it was the winner's prize for the very first 8th grade spelling bee in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania on May 25th, 1908 at the Carnegie Music Hall. And this 14-karat gold medal was provided by the professor who managed the bee, and this design was never used again. So this piece is unique. Absolutely and totally unique. Now let's get a closer look at the obverse. This is the Fort Pitt Blockhouse, and it was constructed in 1764. It still stands. It still stands in Point Park in Pittsburgh, and it was created as a defensive military redoubt. So what's a redoubt? Well, when you take the fort, the walls of the fort, well, they would typically place around the fort these redoubts to help when attacked, to help repel attackers. And as I said, this is the only piece of Fort Pitt that still stands, and it is the oldest authenticated structure west of the Allegheny Mountains. And that's, of course, silver right there in the middle of the gold. And you can see that the winner of the competition was Robert Earl Spence, Pittsburgh's best speller in 1908. And the reverse, we don't see engraving like this anymore, do we? I mean, that engraving is so beautiful, and you just don't see this. And so this is a piece of history, an absolute piece of history, as many of the other pieces are. And I didn't pay much of a high price for this, actually, because it was back when gold wasn't so expensive. And I sold it to a very good friend, so I can see it whenever I want to. Well, what's this look like? Silver ingot? No. If you spotted this as a Brazilian commemorative bar, you're an absolute numismatic whiz. Because it was issued for the International Eucharistic Congress in Rio de Janeiro in 1955. It's silver. It contains 88 grams of silver, and it's numbered. It's number 16 of 44. You can see that up on the top. And given the silver rushes that we've had, my guess is a number of these were melted during those silver rushes. And I still remember what I paid for this one. It's $300. And I don't know if any of you remember John Burns, the book dealer. John was a numismatic whiz, and I would always take my purchases over to John, especially if they were really different kinds of things. And I'd say, John, what's this? And he would always identify them. Well, when I got this, I said, I got John. And I bought this at a table no more than 50 yards. Well, not even 50 yards, more than 50 feet from his table. And I took it over and I said, okay, John, I've got you. What is it? He said, Brazilian Commemorative Bar. I mean, John was just amazing. And if you knew him, I think he was one of the most adept numismatic experts in our field. And I'll always remember John whenever I see this. Not particularly overall attractive, but incredibly historical. Oh, this is one of my babies. Oh my goodness. Do you recognize this as an early mint medal? That's what it is. It was sold from 1870 to 1903 by the mint and only 76 were struck. So how many of those could be left? One was struck in silver. And the other cool thing about it is that William Barber was the engraver. And the idea was to honor Joseph Pancoast, who was professor of anatomy at Jefferson Medical College. And isn't the mahogany patina on this copper medal and its high relief, isn't it amazing? I just love it. In fact, let me show you a close-up of the obverse. Look at that piece. Look at that coloring and that work that Barber did to make that happen. Oh, I could just look at this all day. I mean, talk about eye candy. This to me is eye candy. And I'll bet to some of you it's eye candy as well. Oh, incredible. Oh, and I remember who I got this from. Joe Levine, who is no longer with us. And I'm sure some of you knew Joe. And this is a purchase from him, as a number of my purchases for the overall exhibit came from Joe. Whoa, what is this? Well, it's nothing more than a block of wood. But if you look in the center, you read those famous words, "You may fire Gridley when you are ready." And around the edge, you see Dewey, you see May 1, 1898, you see Manila Bay, and you see Olympia, his ship. And of course, this is about the USS Olympia, which was Commodore George Dewey's flagship in the Battle of Manila Bay. He attacked the Spanish fleet with his Asiatic squadron on May 1, 1898, on that date, and by getting things started with those famous words, "This is a made from." What is a made from? Any of you that collect exonomia know what a made from is. This was made from the wood of the Olympia. And it was probably, this piece probably came from the repairs after one of the battles, or any of the restorations that kept her afloat. She's still afloat to this day. And so how did I get this? Oh, this is a story. A friend who was a vest pocket dealer was walking around an A&A show, and he knew that I collect wild and crazy things. He came up to me and said, "Hey, Sam, you need to see what's in my pocket." I said, "What, in your pocket?" It wasn't even any kind of a holder. He just pulled it out of his pocket and said, "Sam, you need this." And I said, "Wow, do I need it?" And when he said $40, I said, "Wow, boy, do I need it." And so it became a treasured part of my exhibit. And who knows how rare it is. It's got to be rare. I doubt it's unique, but it's got to be pretty rare, doesn't it? Okay. Well, here's another piece, at least for me, that's eye candy. Those of you that collect or are interested in air coins, you would just love this piece. And I found it. Anthony Swiatek, you probably know Anthony, had it one day. I used to always, when I was going to A&A convention, just sit there at his table and we would chat. Anthony and I became good friends. And one day I looked in his case because he usually had commemorative coins, and I didn't typically buy commemorative coins. And I saw this sitting in his case, and I had to have it. And it's because striking errors are rarely as spectacular as this one. It's a double strike with the second strike 80% off center. And the complexity of this error with the high grade and the beauty, man, this is an unmatched treasure. It was hard for me to let this one go. I did. After the Philadelphia convention, I sold off most of the exhibit to actually one dealer. And get a closer look at this one. Just look at that. Wow. Isn't that something? Amazing. Just amazing. Well, you know what this is all about? Signatures. So actually, I purchased this from an organization, I won't mention the name, and they had totally misattributed it. They had totally misattributed it. And I did some research and I found where it really came from. And that is that in 1820, John Lloyd married Anne Lee, who was the first cousin to Robert E. Lee. And after they got married, their family began growing, and so they needed a bigger house. And so they purchased the very elegant Hoffman residence in Alexandria. Maybe some of you have heard of that. In Alexandria, Virginia, they purchased it in 1832. So Lee made a loan to Lloyd to buy the house. And this 1836 receipt is for $180 Lee received in interest. The home is now the Office of Historic Alexandria. And it's the frame, and by the way, and this is very beautiful. In fact, let me give you a close-up, and let me tell you how it was misattributed. Do you see that in the second line, received of John Lloyd, SEN? Well, the organization, by the way, a very reputable, well-known organization, said this was John Lloyd Senator. Well, they must have never looked it up, because I did. There was no such thing as a John Lloyd Senator. And by the way, why would Senator be at the end? It would always be at the beginning. So I did some research and found out that this was actually repayment to Robert E. Lee on the interest of a loan that he gave to them to buy the house. And very, very historical, is it not? And by the way, this was in my exhibit that I had mentioned before about, Lee versus Grant. Now I also have Grant's signature. It's only a signature. It's not this beautiful piece. I just love it. Oh, what do we have here? What do we have here? Well, these are two 1.5-inch silver boxes, and they're souvenirs from the World's Columbian Exposition, held in Chicago in 1893, 92 and 93. The needle box above, definitely it's a needle box, was sold in the Women's Building. Don't know what the one below is, but the one below, where did I don't remember. Oh, I got the needle box from a friend. Yeah, a friend sold me the needle box. In fact, Rodger Hersey, some of you will know that name, Rodger Hersey. He's no longer with us, but the People's Choice Award is given every year at the World's Fair of Money, is given in his name. And the one at the bottom I found at an antique store about 2 miles from my house. I walked in one day and I saw that and said, "Oh my goodness, do I need that?" And it's so exciting that when you collect this way to find something that's just off the beaten path, and you say, that's going to fit in my collection, because it's strange and it's weird and nobody else collects it. It's a beauty. It's an absolute beauty. So what do we have here? What do we have here? Well, I'm sure you've identified these as love tokens, right? And love tokens, well, they're coins. If you haven't ever run into one, they're coins with one side shaved, and either initials, a name, as in this case, initials on the right, a name on the left, are engraved on it. And actually, these things started in England in the early 1800s, and they got very popular here about 60 years later. And what happened was a man would give this gift to a woman as a token of love. And that's why they're called That's why they are called love tokens, not because they are like, as we call tokens versus medals, but because they are tokens of love. You may not have known that. And most US examples, they're on seated dimes. And if you collect love tokens, you know that they're mostly on seated dimes, but they can be on any denomination. They don't have to be on half dimes. And the modern love token on the left, well, that was a birthday gift to my wife in 1989. And the host coin is an 1880 silver dollar. And don't say, well, Sam, why didn't you put it on an 1889 silver dollar? Because I didn't think of it at the time. That's why. But you even can't get engraving like that anymore. And that was only 1989. And it's a beauty. The one on the right, well, that's an original love token, and it's on a US gold dollar. The carved initials, you got to wonder, their CNA, is there any chance that could mean the Canadian Numismatic Association? Wouldn't be exactly a love token, so it was probably really the initials of a woman. But here's a closer look at both of them, and you can just appreciate the artwork. I mean, look at the artwork on that $1 gold piece. Isn't that amazing? And I mean, this is why I collect. I collect for art purposes. I collect for historical purposes, to understand manufacturing. It's so amazing that we can find things like this. They're so beautiful. And they're pieces of history that we need to preserve. All right. Well, what's this one all about? Well, you probably recognize this as a counterstamp. In the 19th century, some retailers advertised on counter-stamped US coins. Parisian varieties, well, it was a show of exotic young ladies, I don't know exactly how they were clad, that opened in New York City on September 15, 1875. The host coin here is an 1876 half dollar, as you can see. And I have been told that about 33 such pieces are known. So it's pretty rare. And how the thing gets so worn? Well, it almost had to be a lucky pocket piece. Some of you may have lucky pocket pieces. And after 30 or 40 years of rubbing around in your pocket, it can look like this. And a lot of them look like this. But there are some that look better, some that look worse. But it's an absolute piece of history, is it not? Parisian varieties. Oh boy, this piece is incredibly beautiful, and I'm going to show it to you in a larger scale in a moment. But this is an example of a fraternal medal. Fraternal medal collectors typically specialize in one or more societies of personal interest. And this is from the Howland Society of New York. It was formed in 1885, the Howland Society was, to collect information about the settlement history of New Netherland, which was their name for, which became New York City. And the main objective of the society is to locate and preserve information about inhabitants' lives and times. This particular one here was awarded to an unknown recipient. There's no carving on it. An unknown recipient of Dutch descent on January 8th, 1906. And when I saw this, I said, oh my goodness, this is another one of these. You got to have it. Take a look. Take a look at this thing. I'm getting chills looking at it. Is anybody else getting chills looking at it? I mean, this kind of work doesn't exist anymore. You take a look at it. The society was founded in 1609. No, not in 1609. It was founded in 1889. But oh my goodness, it was incredible, absolutely incredible. And the backside was just flat, nothing on the backside, no engraving or anything. But what a view! What a piece of information! My goodness. Now there's something different. Don't you just love it? And to find it on the original background piece of paper, that's paper in the background. And so what's it all about? Well, this is in honor of Knights Templar. This could also be called an encampment badge. You could probably put either one of those monikers on it. But Knights Templar, as many of you know, is a Western Christian military order inspired by the Templar Knights. And they were a highly skilled fighting unit of the Crusaders. The Knights Templar happened to hold their 1898 encampment in Pittsburgh. As you can tell, I'm from Pittsburgh. And each Knights Templar commandery issued its own badge to celebrate its attendance, as did the representatives here from Lewistown, Maine. But boy, I mean, we just don't create things like this anymore, do we? I mean, you know, the badge you get for going to anything now is probably going to be a piece of paper on your, right, on a pin. And this had a pin on the back, and so it was, and that's how it's pinned to that piece of paper. But to find it with the paper, it probably almost doubles the price of it. Love it. Just love it. Any of you interested in sports medals? Well, sports medals in the 100-year-old category are nearly impossible to find these days. I've gone online, and Etsy has a couple of them, and I have a collection of about 25 of them. This is one, I'm showing you this one because it's solid gold. Not many of them are solid gold. And it's also made by Diegers and Klust, which is the most famous maker of sports medals. And it was awarded on the reverse. It's not engraved, but on the reverse it says it's rewarded to the winner of the javelin throw at a dual track meet between Princeton and California in 2006. And look at the condition of that ribbon from being almost 100 years old. And it's also in the original box, which is almost unheard of to be able to find 100 years later. And let me give you a close-up of it. Dual track meet, Princeton versus California. And as I said, very rare, not too many of these are actually solid gold. And I have another one from Princeton that's very beautiful from 1894. But it's not gold. Thought you'd like to see this one. In fact, I got it right behind me there in one of the drawers. I pull it out often and take a look at it. Well, this isn't exactly a piece of eye candy, is it? But what's it all about? Allegheny Arsenal, 1861. What was going on in 1861? Yep, you got it. The Civil War was going on in 1861. And it turns out that the worst civilian tragedy of the Civil War was on September 17th, 1862. The Allegheny Arsenal in Pittsburgh blew up, and 78 people died. Most of them were women and teenage girls who were assembling cartridges for Union rifles. And something went wrong, and it just blew up. There's now a school. There's now a high school that's built where the Allegheny Arsenal was, and it's called Arsenal High School. But few Civil War artifact collectors are aware of this event, and the reason is, as some of you already know, that 9/17 was the first day of the Battle of Antietam, when the headlines on all of our papers screamed about 22,720 casualties, more than we have received on any other day in American military history to this day. Now, overall, more soldiers died at Gettysburg Battle of Gettysburg, then Antietam. But on one day, we have never lost that many people. Now, casualties, of course, means both dead and wounded. But that number, just imagine that number, 22,720. Nothing like that has ever happened again. And of course, this is a saddle badge. I mean, I could have also identified this as a saddle badge, but to me, it's a Civil War artifact. Found it in an antique store up the road one day. Actually, they had two of them, and I wish I'd have taken both, but I took one. But it's pretty. It's not exactly eye candy, but it's very historical, and that's what excites me. As does this piece. You say, well, Sam, oh, come on, Sam, that's just a Purple Heart. I mean, aren't there are a lot of Purple Hearts around? Yeah, but not this Purple Heart. And as you already know, the Purple Heart goes to those wounded or killed while serving on or after April 5th, 1917 with the U.S. military. And above the profile of George Washington was those three stars who established it for bravery originally in the Revolutionary War is the Washington family coat of arms. That's those three stars and those two vertical horizontal lines. Here's what makes this one incredibly special. I also had the paperwork that came with it. I also had letter written by Sherry Landis to his family. A letter, first of all, that said that he was at the Avon, bombing range. That's where he got his flying wings, and that's what you see up there. Those are his flying wings. I have letters from him to his family, and I also have a letter from the government, the military, to his family, describing his death, that he was shot down and killed and lost over Europe on April 29th, 1944. And so the whole piece, all of those pieces were in the exhibit. And it made this Purple Heart very, very special. Well, Sam, that's just another plaster. Why are you showing that to us? Well, here's why. First of all, this is the plaster of the ANA's newest exhibit award. And it's credit to Joel Itzkowitz. And if you're at all steeped in the hobby, you know that Joel Itzkowitz is currently one of the most renowned medallic artists that we know of. He's also a friend, and he actually sent me drawings of this, and it's designed. The exhibit, this award is designed in memory of Radford Stearns, and some of you, especially from Georgia, you know Radford, of Radford, who unfortunately we lost a number of years ago, and it became the Best in Show medallion for only two shows, which is amazing. The 2011 and 2012 National Money Show. It's now used in other ways as an award. I'm not sure, but I think it's a runner-up award to Howland Wood. I'm not positive on that. Some of you may know that, and if you do, please tell us when you get a chance to respond at the end. And here's what it's all about. The theme of the award, and this is what Joel told me. The theme is education through exhibiting, and the young girl symbolizes a new generation of collectors. She is holding a coin examined with a magnifying glass by her mentor, Numismatic History. And the lamp of knowledge, if you look at the lamp of knowledge, the front of the lamp of knowledge to the extreme left, you see three flames. The first one's for scholarship. The second one is for appreciation of numismatic history, which I have. And 3, sharing through exhibits, which I have loved to do. And the great book of history is in front of the numismaster. And the little girl carries a reference volume of her own. Just that story, just from those few things on that medallion. And there's the original pencil sketch. and there's the, wait a minute. It looks like Numismatic turned from a woman to a man. And I only noticed this a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to give Joel a call and see if that was his intent, if that's what happened. But it's pretty clear that that's a woman on the left, right, and a man on the actual plaster. And here's what the final medallion looks like. And that's mine. That's mine for Best of Show exhibit. Unfortunately, on the reverse, and I won this in Pittsburgh, and unfortunately on the reverse, Pittsburgh is misspelled, but then that makes it an error coin. There's no H in Pittsburgh. So actually that's pretty cool. And it was presented to Off the Beaten Numismatic Path at the Pittsburgh National Money Show in 2011. And the exhibit has also won 2 People's Choice Awards and also a Silver Howland Wood Award. Came in 2nd place. And but I got some revenge because a couple years later, I went to another show and beat the guy in Best of Show. It was a regional show. So, but it's a beautiful, beautiful medallion, is it not? Now, here are some of the other pieces in the exhibit. There are 76 pieces in total in the overall exhibit, and you can see there's some cool pieces there. I had a coin watch, I had a jigsaw puzzle silver dollar. I had an Allender coin scale with the counterweights that was actually used on that coin scale. The Carnegie Hero is a medal. Sing Sing prison money, that was cool. I had both paper and coins of Sing Sing prison money. Silver dollar pop-out coin, I had at the bottom there, I had an envelope that was carried on the Graf Zeppelin and stamped in the Graf Zeppelin. And so many amazing things in this. And you say, what's the Sommelier's cup? Why is that well, it actually had a French silver coin as its bottom. And that was incredibly cool. So these are all the things that were in the exhibit. Well, not everything. There were 76 total, and what I've shown you so far and what you've seen here is not 76, but so incredible amount of fun. I mean, see, the other thing about this collection is I've collected other things, but I've never wanted to always go back and look at them in my, and I just kept wanting to look at these things because, like I said, they're absolute eye candy. And you can do the same thing. No reason you can't. So here's the question. Are you ready to get off the beaten path? And if any of you are and you want to talk about it and get some thoughts and advice, let me know. So that's it. We're done. And now if you have sent any questions in, I'll be more than honored to answer them, or comments. Looking at comments would be interesting as well.
Yeah, so Sam, Gary Lewis had a little bit earlier asked, if you go off the path, do you find it more difficult to dispose of when you want to sell?
Oh, hey, Gary, how you doing? I think in today's world you might, because I tend to find, I don't know if I'm correct on this, but I tend to find fewer exonomia dealers at shows, and these are the people that typically would buy it. But there's still always somebody who'll buy it. And actually, one person, as I mentioned before, one very, very well-known coin dealer bought pretty much the whole exhibit all at once. And so yeah, you if you didn't find somebody who was willing to buy the whole thing, you might have to sell some things here and some different things there and different things like that. So, but I had no trouble getting rid of it. And Gary, I'm willing to tell you who the dealer was if you want to know. Not on this call, but privately.
I've got a handful of compliments to you, Sam. Does anybody else have any questions at this point? Any further questions for Sam? We've got one from William, excuse me. Will these items hold their value in time?
Oh, yes, they definitely did. Yeah, I mean, when I have sold coins off, generally speaking, you have to sell them back to a dealer, and you almost rarely get what you paid. For when I sold this collection, I would say that I got about 90% of what I put into them, because you almost never get, unless you get something that's really shooting upward. I mean, like, I wish I'd held on to my 1796 quarter and chain cent and some other things that I sold for my kids' education because they went like crazy. But now I think they do tend to hold value.
Okay. Does anybody else have any questions at this point for Sam before we finalize this great class? I've got a handful more compliments, Sam. It was a great presentation.
Great. Yes, I'm looking at some of them. Thank you all. Glad you enjoyed it.
Well, if there are no further questions, Sam, I wanted to thank you. This is an awesome and educational presentation. I hope everyone has enjoyed it and learned as much as I did myself. Again, we would like to thank Graysheet for their partnership with the ANA eLearning Academy, and we hope you all will join us in the future webinars, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. And thanks again, Sam.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you all.